Welcome back. Lesson 6 Rules of Inference Introduction. An argument is a sequence of statements that end with a conclusion. A valid argument is one where the conclusion or the final statement of the argument follows from the truth of the preceding statements or premises or the argument. An argument is valid if and only if it is impossible for all the premises to be true and the conclusion to be false. Fallacies are incorrect reasonings which lead to invalid arguments. Here is an example of a valid argument. If you have a BCC ID card, then you may enter the college. Well, you have a BCC ID card. Therefore, here is the conclusion. You may enter the college. This particular argument is written in this fashion. If P, then Q, and P is true. Well, P is true, and if P is true, then Q has to be true. So the conclusion is Q is true. This is written as follows. P implies Q. And P is true. Therefore, Q is true. An argument in propositional logic is a sequence of propositions. All but the final proposition in the argument are called premises. And the final proposition is called the conclusion. So that's, for example, a propositional logic. This is a premise. This is a premise. And this is a conclusion, is the conclusion. An argument is valid if the truth of all its premises implies that the conclusion is true. An argument form in propositional logic is a sequence of compound propositions involving propositional variables. An argument form is valid no matter which particular propositions are substituted for the propositional variables in the premises. The conclusion is true if the premises are all true. That is, the argument form with premises P1 through Pn and conclusion Q is valid when P1 and P2 and so on. Oh, that should be Pn, that Pn. This compound proposition implies Q is a tautology. Okay. Rules of inference for propositional logic. Rules of inference are used as building blocks to construct more complicated valid argument forms. Modus ponens, or the law of detachment, is the rule of inference based on the tautology P and P implies Q implies Q. Okay. Modus ponens is Latin for the mode that affirms. Mode that affirms in Latin is written modus ponens. I hope this is clear. Okay. There are many useful rules of inference for propositional logic. The most widely used of these are listed here. We just saw modus ponens, that is P and P implies Q together implies Q. Rule of inference, it's written P is true and P implies Q, therefore Q is true. Modus tollens. It says not Q and P implies Q, conclusion not P. I hope this is clear. If P is true, then Q has to be true. But this says Q is not true. If not Q and P implies Q, then P has to be not true. So that's written in rules of inference as not Q and P implies Q. Therefore, not P. Next one. P implies Q and Q implies R. Conclusion, P implies R. Rules of inference, the same thing. P implies Q and Q implies R. Therefore, P implies R. This is called hypothetical syllogism. So you see, I hope this is clear. If P is true, then Q is true. And if Q is true, then R is true. In other words, if P is true, then R has to be true. That's what we are saying here. P or Q, not P. You see, P or Q is true, not P is true, so Q has to be true, therefore Q. P or Q and not P, conclusion Q. This is disjunctive syllogism. If P is true, then P or Q is true. P implies P or Q. This is called addition. P and Q are true, therefore P is true. That is, P and Q implies P. That's called simplification. Conjunction. P is true, Q is true, therefore P and Q is true. P and Q implies P and Q. That's conjunction. Here is resolution. P or Q and negative P or R. This implies Q or R. You see, either P or Q is true. Pretend P is true here and not P or R. You see, if P is true, not P is false. Therefore, R is true. So, one conclusion is R. So, that's the first case, assuming P is true. Suppose P is not true, then Q has to be true. So, and if P is not true, not P is true. So, Q and true gives you Q. So, that's the resolution. P or Q and not P or R, therefore Q or R. Modus tollens means mode that denies by denying. A syllogism is a kind of logical argument that applies deductive reasoning to arrive at a conclusion based on two or more propositions that are asserted or assumed to be true. What rule of inference is used in each of these arguments? Let's go over these examples in our next video.